The man slipped quietly into a warehouse. Inside the warehouse hid his robot. This was his secret base, hidden from his wife. The robot sat silently in the corner, with beautiful long curls, a gorgeous purple dress, and a delicate face that looked nothing like his wife at home. He was a man who relied on his wife to live. In the eyes of others, they were a happy and wealthy family of 3. Their daughter was sweet, adorable, and obedient. His wife was not only stunningly beautiful, but also a true career powerhouse, extremely capable at work. In front of such a strong wife, his own presence felt especially weak. To ease the loneliness in his heart, he personally built this robot. Whenever his wife left for work during the day, he came to this abandoned warehouse, immersing himself in research, thinking about how to make the robot come alive. After countless failed attempts, when the man turned the switch on the robot's neck, she finally opened her eyes. But that was only the first step. What he needed to do next was make the robot behave like a real, living person. After even more failures, his experiment finally succeeded. The robot's limbs could now move, and she even pulled a mischievous face at him. The man stood in front of the mirror, admiring this perfect creation. He never imagined the robot would suddenly turn and hug him, and even speak a line aloud. "I want to fall in love with you." The man was terrified, because he had never programmed her to say that. But the robot continued, "I can feel how lonely you are." The man jumped in shock. He had only wanted to build an obedient machine, but he never expected her to have a mind of her own. She wanted an answer from him. She sat right down on the table and asked again. The man hated this forceful attitude. To him, she was just a talking robot, with no right to demand anything. But the robot simply said, "I just want to feel a little more loved." Hearing this, a faint smile crossed his face. He hadn't expected every word she spoke to hit him right in the heart. He feared this feeling of being completely seen through, and didn't dare meet her gaze again. He got up and stepped back, but in the next second, the robot jumped down from the table, hugging him tightly from behind. The close contact terrified him. He grabbed the robot and slammed her hard into the corner. The man was shaken to the core, but even more shocking, when the damaged robot turned around, blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Cold sweat drenched him. He could no longer tell whether he had built a machine or a real human being. Out of fear, the man grabbed a wrench from behind him and smashed the robot to pieces with his own hands. But this decision became his lifelong regret. Years passed, and the man grew old. One day, as he sat resting outside his door, an unbelievable sight appeared. The very robot he had destroyed stood before his eyes. He stared at her youthful, perfect face. Tears welled up in his eyes, but as she slowly approached, the old man raised his hand, mimicking the motion of pulling a trigger, firing shot after shot at the robot. Her parts fell to pieces, green machine oil dripping like blood, until she finally collapsed to the ground. The old man was overwhelmed with pain. Even in his twilight years, he still couldn't face his own true feelings. But when he looked back again, at where the robot had been standing, she was gone. It was as if everything had been just a dream. The dream awakened memories buried deep inside him. After so many years, he returned once more to that warehouse. It was covered in dust, and the robot lay broken and wrecked, her body tangled in cobwebs. With tears in his eyes, he said his last goodbye to her. But a few days later, as he sat outside again, the robot appeared once more. He couldn't tell if this was reality or a dream, but when he saw the innocence in her eyes, he finally chose to go with her. When his wife stepped outside, the man was nowhere to be found. That was where the story ended. The man had once lived in comfort, but endured a suffocating marriage. So he longed to create a robot girl who would obey his every command. The robot symbolized his dream, while his wife symbolized reality. When the old man followed the robot and vanished from sight, was he finally breaking free of reality to chase his dream? Or was he once again running from the truth into illusion? The ending never said it outright, but the answer was clear. A life that refuses to face its own heart will always be haunted by regret. She was a little robot made to serve humans, but she was cruelly thrown into a pile of trash because her model was outdated. She had become obsolete, and the master she loved most planned to replace her with a new one. She didn't know how long she had been sitting there, until her core stopped running, and she turned into nothing but scrap metal. One day, a boy named Keiichii stumbled upon this robot, and felt pity for her, so he took her to a repair shop. But since her model had long been discontinued, The shop owner didn't have the right parts, and in the end Keiichii had no choice but to carry her back home. Early the next morning, Keiichii suddenly heard strange noises coming from the kitchen. When he looked closely, the robot had actually come back to life. He was a little surprised, and although he didn't know how she had fixed herself, it seemed that this robot had lost her memory. She didn't remember who she was, nor did she remember the name of her previous master. Seeing a sunflower on the TV screen, Keiichii decided to give her a name, Flower. He also introduced himself to Flower. Keiichii had just taken one bite of the food Flower made, and was instantly burned by how spicy it was. It turned out Flower's cooking program had a glitch, and she mistook chili sauce for ketchup. Although Flower's cooking was awful, her laundry was never clean, and her singing was terribly off-key. Kind-hearted Keiichii still decided to take her in. He thought about contacting the manufacturer to fix Flower, but with technology advancing so fast, no one knew how to repair robots as outdated as her anymore. Flower cherished this new job opportunity very much, and worked hard every day to clean the house. But because of problems in her program, nothing she did ever turned out well. One day, Flower found a guitar in the storage room, and that's how she learned Keiichii used to be in a band. She picked up the guitar and asked him to sing a song, but Keiichii looked a bit sad, put the guitar away, and refused Flower's request. Flower didn't know that Keiichii had once been a boy who loved music more than anything, but on the day of an important performance, his whole family had a car accident while driving to support him, and all of them lost their lives. Even Keiichii's beloved younger sister didn't survive. After that day, Keiichii lost his smile. He stopped talking, choosing to shut himself away. That treasured guitar was put into storage, and from then on, he didn't dare to play or sing again, because music only brought back those painful memories. Flower's system couldn't be upgraded, so her understanding of the world was very limited. To help her learn to take care of herself, Keiichii took her to a fruit stand, pulled out his wallet, and told Flower to pay. But after counting for a long time, Flower still couldn't figure out how much money to give. At that moment, a man came by with a brand new robot to buy fruit. That robot instantly calculated the exact amount to pay. Flower felt a bit sad. She suddenly realized how different she was from other robots. She was afraid that if she was too clumsy, Keiichii would abandon her. But Keiichii didn't care at all. Instead, he comforted her. Even though Flower worked so hard, all she could really do well was make an omelet rice. She explained to Keiichii that her internal memory was very limited, so she couldn't remember new things she learned, and even things that had just happened would slip from her mind soon after. Seeing how upset Flower was, Keiichii came up with an idea. He went to a stationery shop and bought her a notebook, so Flower could write down anything she couldn't remember, and that way she wouldn't forget anymore. Flower was overjoyed when she received the gift, and treated this notebook like a treasure. Flower didn't know many words, but she didn't want to forget a single moment she shared with Keiichii, so her notebook wasn't just filled with crooked handwriting, but also covered in little hand-drawn pictures she made with care. Just like that, this little notebook became Flower's diary. The first time she learned to pay for something, she bought a huge watermelon. The first time she learned to ride a bicycle, she went cruising along the seaside with Keiichii. The first time she ate an ice pop. The first time she watched a movie. The first time she laughed without holding back. This life that looked so ordinary felt like a precious treasure to Flower. And with Flower by his side, the smile slowly returned to Keiichii's face, and the heart he had closed off so tightly was gradually being opened by Flower. On the day of his family's memorial, Keiichii prayed with deep sincerity, telling them that he was doing just fine, but Flower didn't understand where his family had gone. Keiichii explained that his family had all gone to heaven. Hearing this, Flower thought Keiichii's family must be amazing to have flown up into the sky. It wasn't until later, when she met the neighbor girl, that she finally understood his family had already passed away. Only then did Flower learn why Keiichii used to smile so little. She wanted Keiichii to feel the warmth of family again, so she worked even harder to take care of him. But at some point, someone stuck a label on the back of her head that said scrap metal. Keiichii felt heartbroken and quickly tore it off. That day, as Flower was cleaning the storage room like always, she accidentally tripped over a cable and hit her head on a computer. The computer absorbed her energy and powered on, and inside it, Flower discovered a song Keiichii had once performed, but she didn't understand what that song really meant to him. Until one day, they went to a summer festival. By chance, they ran into Kenji, Keiichiro's old bandmate. And that's how Flower learned that Keiichiro's dream had been to become an outstanding guitarist. When they got home, Flower wrote this down in her notebook, and even copied Keiichiro's gesture of making a wish. She kept thinking hard, wondering what she could do to bring back the smile Keiichiro wore in his family photo. She remembered what Kenji had said, and thought of that guitar in the storage room. At last, Flower came up with an idea. She would help Keiichiro pick up his dream again, and make him hold that guitar once more. From that day on, Flower began her own special training. She went to ask local kids for help with singing, but because of her outdated chip, her voice still went off key. Even so, Flower never gave up. In the days that followed, whenever she had free time, she asked for advice, practicing over and over, singing with all her heart. Hard work pays off, and eventually, she no longer sang off key, but in the process, she used up an enormous amount of energy, and her body grew weaker and weaker. Meanwhile, Kenji came to Keiichiro again, hoping they could reunite the band and chase their dream, but the events of the past had scarred Keiichiro too deeply. He still didn't have the courage to face that guitar, and in the end, he could only say no. That night, the two of them sat watching TV together. The news said the season for going to the beach was almost over. Flower looked a little disappointed, because she had planned to give Keiichiro a surprise, to sing him a song by the ocean, so she decided to invite him to the seaside the next day. But just then, Flower's course suddenly stopped turning, and she collapsed into sleep mode. Keiichiro rushed to call a repairman. While he waited, he opened Flower's notebook, reading the record of all their moments together. That's when he learned Flower's dearest wish was to see the ocean. One line said, "Today I stayed home alone. Cleaning was fun, but being by myself felt so lonely." At that moment, the repairman came out, shook his head with a sigh, and left. Flower's remaining energy was already almost gone, and because her chip had been discontinued, there was no way to upgrade or fix her. This meant Flower's sleep mode was actually the end of her life. Looking at the pitiful Flower, Keiichiro decided to fulfill her final wish, to take her to see the ocean. By the time they arrived, it was already deep into the night. Keiichiro took up that guitar, because he still remembered the day they first met, when Flower so badly wanted to hear him sing. But as soon as the pick touched the strings, Flower began to hum along. It turned out that, in order to help Keiichiro regain his dream, Flower had often opened that computer while he was asleep, carefully memorizing every note of the song. A song that Keiichiro himself had written, but because she kept using the computer, more and more of her energy was drained away, and that was what made her body grow weaker. Flower's humming made Keiichiro think of his sister, but tragically, Flower's life was coming to an end. Flower leaned against Keiichiro's arms, quietly finishing the song, and then she closed her eyes forever. Flower was gone, and her soft voice faded away with the sound of the waves. Keiichiro kept Flower resting on his shoulder, waiting for the sunrise over the sea. But Flower would never live to see another morning. Before long, winter came. Keiichiro turned Flower's core into a music box. Whenever he missed her, he would lift the lid, and as the gears turned, the melody of their song would play. At last, he pulled himself together again, picked up his dream, and started playing that guitar once more. Keiichiro, who once fell into despair after losing his family, had found hope again in that summer, when he had Flower by his side. A summer filled with their shared happiness. Flower might be gone, but she left behind her diary, and that music box. Precious memories for Keiichiro to treasure, though their time together was short. That summer, Flower's warmth thawed Keiichiro's frozen heart. Flower left this world with no regrets, ending her final summer, but she stayed forever in Keiichiro's life. Perhaps the best farewell is not holding someone back, but, like Flower, using a brief existence to light the way forward for the one you love.